Right. Hello, candidates. This is Kathleen, your portfolio coach. Just wanted to check in quickly to give you a couple of tips and suggestions as you develop your evidence plan, which is due September 8th, coming up pretty soon. So not this Sunday, but the following. So wanted to draw your attention to a couple of resources in the portfolio course that you can use as you're developing your evidence plan. The first is sort of a general one as you develop your whole portfolio, but I hope you'll take some time to look at the portfolio samples that are available in Blackboard. They're located here in your left navigation. So those will really give you a good idea of the depth and breadth required for your portfolio course and give you some good examples of the evidence that you can use to support each of the standards that you need to do for teacher growth, which are assessment, instructional strategies, and planning for instruction. Other thing I wanted to note here for you is this evidence idea bank. That's also available on your left navigation, and that is a really amazing resource. So that takes you to a Google Doc, which will give you, I think it's a 6-page document, which breaks it down by each part of the portfolio and gives you really a great list of potential artifacts and evidence that you could use in your portfolio. So you can see here for assessment, there are things like suggestions like trackers, diagnostic assessments, exit tickets, intervention strategies, data analysis, tons of different suggestions here. So if you're stuck on what to include for your evidence, there's some really great resources here. One thing to note here is that these are suggestions, but when you do your evidence plan, you need to give a higher level of detail. So for example, if you're going to use exit tickets as one of your artifacts, that's great, but you really want to specify which exit tickets you're going to use. So is it going to come from a particular lesson? Maybe it's something you used in your classroom last year, or you already know you're going to be using exit tickets in an upcoming lesson, but you really want to specify it. So don't just say exit tickets, but say exit ticket from my figurative language lesson on alliteration or whatever it may be. If we pop back to the portfolio course briefly, also want to call your attention to this module and submission sections. If you checked out our welcome video, you know I talked about that. It's a small part of the left navigation here, but it's really where the bulk of the course exists. So if you come down to your evidence plan module section, there's a bunch of resources in there. This is giving you information about the timeline. You have resources, guides, again, that evidence bank. You'll see your student growth section guides. This is really useful. Those are basically just some guiding questions for you. So when you create your evidence plan, a good check, I think, is to see, okay, does my evidence actually demonstrate and does it provide a good answer for those guiding questions? You will also scroll down, and this is where your evidence plan exemplar is. So we'll take a look at that real quick. This gives you an example of a completed evidence plan. I know it's a little cut off for you all, but hopefully you'll take some time and look at that on your own. So here you can see it's really detailed. So it's specifying up here that it's coming from a pre-algebra unit plan. So it doesn't just say unit plan, it specifies which one. You see here it mentions doing annotations, reflection on the unit. There's some pictures that are referenced. And then over here on the rationale, that's kind of where you're going to explain why you're using the evidence you've chosen. So that's really important as well. So I hope you'll take some time to look through that. One thing to note is that this exemplar only covers one section of the portfolio. This is a planning for instruction one. You need to do an evidence plan for each of the 3 sections. So assessment, planning for instruction, and instructional strategies. So don't let this fool you. They're just giving you an example of one section. Another thing to think about when you're developing your evidence plan is that you really want to list out and demonstrate how you're going to show a package of evidence. So you might hear or see throughout the course the term layering. What that means is that you don't want to just provide one piece of evidence to show how you meet a standard. You really want to have a whole package that really demonstrates that you are proficient in that standard in a holistic and dynamic way. So for example, you might include a project or a performance-based task, a lesson that you use to scaffold that project, student work examples from that, annotations where you explain all those things. You might have some pictures, you might have a rubric where you scored an actual student project or performance task, maybe it's like a speech or a debate or something like that. Some photos, and also, of course, your reflection on your own teaching practice. So I want to emphasize here that you don't have to have perfect evidence, or it doesn't have to be, from the lesson plan that went perfectly. You could use evidence from something that didn't go so great, as long as you're including in your reflection, how you would, you can kind of know what went wrong and what you would do to make it better next time. Other thing is that you can use evidence for your teacher growth part of your portfolio from any point in your teaching career. So it doesn't have to be from this semester or this year. If you taught a different grade last semester or even a different subject, you can include that evidence in any of the sections. And like you could include evidence from 11th grade and also 12th grade. That's totally fine. It doesn't have to be all one subject or one grade. One thing to note, though, is that for your student growth section of the portfolio, that evidence does need to be from your time in the program at Hopkins. And while you're not required to do an evidence plan for student growth at this time, I highly encourage you to do so. The reason for that is because a lot of the standards on student growth are things that take a little bit more long-term planning. So you want to kind of start thinking about those things now so that you can be sure you're either going to implement them later this semester or in the spring semester when you develop your student growth portfolio. Final note about grading here is that unlike the other portions of the portfolio course where you're going to be getting formative feedback, where I'll do a whole rubric markup for you, and then you'll get a formative score before it gets scored for a final score at the end of the semester, your evidence plan only gets scored one time, and it's scored on a scale of 0 to 0.5 points. So you want to make sure you are doing it, you're submitting it thoroughly, you're putting detail and effort into it, not only so that you get a good score on it, but really so that you have a good working document that's going to save you time and effort and stress as you go through the semester. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. You can email me, set up a time to talk with me, or text me. You have my number in the email, but it's 301-922-3632. Don't hesitate to reach out. This is what my job is. I'm really here to answer your questions, give you feedback, and support you as you go through this process. So if we hadn't had a chance to connect yet, please set up a time to talk with me and do fill out that survey. Many thanks to those of you who already have, but I really look forward to seeing your evidence plans. If you have questions as you're developing this week, don't hesitate to reach out. We can bounce ideas off each other. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing them and talk to y'all soon. Thanks so much.